Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Okay, let's jump right into this. Today, we're unpacking an explainer on some incredibly fascinating source material that kind of challenges everything we think we know about ancient history. We're looking at the legend of a forgotten mother civilization. We're talking about a place that, according to some highly controversial but absolutely captivating texts, supposedly birthed humanity itself. That's right, today we're exploring the lost continent of Mu. So picture this, 50,000. According to the source material, 50,000 years ago, there wasn't just a whole lot of empty ocean in the Pacific. There was a massive landmass. We're talking larger than South America. And it wasn't empty either. The texts claim it was a thriving, bustling continent, home to 64 million people, complete with 7 major cities, and a grasp of technology that we, even today in our modern era, still can't quite explain. But how could an entire continent just vanish? And honestly, how do we even know it was there to begin with? Section 1. The Discovery of Mu. Okay, the story of how we found out about this unfolds literally like an adventure novel. It all kicks off in the late 19th century with a British writer and former soldier named James Churchward. While he was doing his military service in India, he ended up befriending this highly respected Indian monk. And this monk showed Churchward these top-secret, sun-burnt clay tablets written in an ancient, completely unreadable language. Well, the monk eventually taught Churchward how to read it, a language known as Nagamaya. According to Churchward, these tablets revealed that all mankind had its roots in one single place, Mu. But, one source isn't exactly enough, right? Well, fast forward to 1921. An archaeologist named William Niven discovers over 100 incredibly complex tablets in Mexico. Nobody could read them. That is, until Churchward stepped in. He claimed these Niven tablets were also written in the Nagamaya language, which seemingly confirmed that the descendants of Mu had spread across the entire globe. By 1926, Churchward published a series of books detailing the whole shebang, blowing the doors wide open on the Mu theory. So, who actually lived there? Well, Churchward's translations define the citizens of Mu as the Na'akal, and they were, to put it mildly, striking. The source describes them as having a dark yellowish brown or mahogany complexion with pronounced lower jaws and small piercing eyes set far apart. But here's the real shocker, they supposedly stood between 12 and 15 feet tall. I mean, wow. Churchward was completely impartial in his awe here, claiming that their civilization was, in many respects, vastly superior to our own. Section 2. An impossibly advanced city. There is just a stark contrast between our modern environment and Mu. Think about where we live right now. In our modern cities, we rely heavily on combustion engines, rigid concrete grids, and artificial heating and cooling systems. But in Mu, the source describes their infrastructure as a living system. Imagine waking up in a room where the walls are made of this warm, volcanic-like stone that actually regulates its own temperature. No fires, no blasting the air conditioning. The stone itself was supposedly treated with vibrational frequencies that channeled the Earth's natural energy, so it would naturally cool down during the day and radiate warmth at night. And outside, no rigid asphalt roads. Instead, they had smooth stone pathways following sacred geometric principles that were specifically designed to enhance human consciousness and physical health. Now, you might be wondering, how did they actually build these seamless, towering structures? Because they definitely didn't use hammers and chisels. According to the source texts, they used specific frequencies to alter the density of rock. They supposedly used sound to literally soften solid stone, shaped it by hand, and then allowed it to perfectly reharden into a permanent, jointless form. It's almost like a giant puzzle that melts together. Section 3. Crystal power and telepathy. Let's look at how they handled getting sick and compare our modern healthcare to the medical system described in Mu. Today, we go to sterile hospitals, we rely on blood tests, we take pharmaceuticals. In Mu, healthcare was centered entirely around the crystal temple. This was a massive structure built around a giant quartz crystal that drew electromagnetic currents straight from the Earth's core. Spiritual practitioners wouldn't draw your blood, they'd read your energy fields. Actually, they viewed illness entirely as a disturbance in the energetic body. So to heal you, they used specifically tuned smaller crystals and sound frequencies to basically unblock your energy. The architecture and even the natural aromatics of the temple were all engineered for holistic healing. And this same energy technology supposedly powered their transportation too. Forget combustion engines, forget pollution. The texts detail silent, hovering transport pods that manipulated local gravitational fields using precisely tuned crystal arrays. It was true anti-gravity. But even more mind-boggling than that, the source claims that advanced Nayako practitioners didn't even need vehicles. By raising their personal vibrational frequency, they could achieve instantaneous travel. They were effectively dematerializing in one place and reappearing hundreds of miles away. No way, right? Let's move to another totally unbelievable aspect of their daily life: communication. There were obviously no cell phones in Mu. They used telepathy. But it wasn't just magic, it was a trained, step-by-step skill. Step 1 started in childhood, literally learning to project thoughts. Step 2 involved short-distance practice, which eventually scaled up to Step 3, instant, perfectly accurate cross-continental communication. And because everyone could literally feel what others were feeling, lying was practically impossible. It resulted in a highly empathetic society, but Step 4 was absolutely crucial. They learned early on to shield their minds. They had to maintain mental barriers to keep private thoughts exactly that, private. Section 4, the Global Ancient Network. So according to the source, Mu's reach was completely global. They navigated the oceans not with compasses, but by reading the Earth's electromagnetic energy grid. They traveled in these crystal-powered ships that never needed refueling. And the texts make this massive claim that Mu's missionaries traveled to Egypt to literally seed the pharaonic civilization. They went to India, allowing Vedic culture to absorb Nikal wisdom. They traveled to China, Mongolia, and the Americas, teaching agriculture, astronomy, and spiritual principles all over the world. Which brings us to a really fascinating question. Could a single ancestor explain our shared global monuments? I mean, think about it for a second. We see pyramids in Egypt, Mexico, China, and Peru, all of them using similar geometry and celestial alignments. The Flower of Life symbol appears in the Temple of Osiris, the Forbidden City in China, and all the way in caves in India. The source asks us to consider, is that just a wild coincidence? Or is this the physical fingerprint of Mu's global missionaries? Section 5, the Fall of Mu. Now everything sounds perfect, right? Well, the crucial point here is that their destruction didn't start with a giant asteroid. It started from within. The source details a massive decline in harmony. A faction emerged that started questioning the old ways of equal power sharing, basically believing that the strongest should rule. And this naturally led to resource hoarding. But their most fatal mistake? Pure hubris. They began pushing their highly advanced energy grids way beyond safe parameters. They took the exact same sound frequencies used to build and to heal, and they weaponized them to shatter stone and literally stop hearts. The spiritual masters of Mu saw the disaster coming from a mile away. They issued a chilling final warning, stating, "The Earth itself is alive. We have broken our covenant with the planet. The Earth will correct this imbalance." As dormant volcanoes started activating and earthquakes shook the land, a few people actually listened and fled on ships to seed new cultures. But the vast majority, they stayed. And then, 12,000 years ago, the end arrived. The source states that in a single catastrophic night, a massive wave wiped out the entire continent. Those magnificent living cities, the crystal temples, the floating transport pods, and 64 million people were swallowed by the earth and the ocean in the blink of an eye. Gone. But does anything actually remain today? Churchword points to physical clues and global myths as the surviving legacy of those refugees who managed to flee Mu. Look at the massive Moai statues of Easter Island. The local Rapa Nui people claim they built them to honor their ancestors. Well, could those ancestors be the 15-foot-tall Nayako? Churchword also points to the bizarre, totally unexplainable stone structures of Nan Model and the underwater Yonaguni Monument in Japan as remnants of this Pacific Empire. And perhaps most compellingly, the story of a great civilization-ending flood appears in Sumerian, Hebrew, Greek, Indian, Chinese, and Native American traditions. The source argues this is the shared global memory of Mu's tragic end. As we look back at the story of a highly advanced, globally connected society that ultimately fractured through greed and pushed its natural resources way beyond the breaking point, we really have to ask ourselves, are we making the same mistakes? Are we pushing nature to the exact same breaking points as the lost continent of Mu?
It's an absolutely fascinating narrative to unpack in this explainer, and whether you view it as literal history or just a powerful allegorical warning, the source material definitely leaves us with a lot to learn and a whole lot to think about. Thanks for exploring this with me, and keep your minds open.